Welcome to our channel Flash Film. Don't forget to subscribe. Zoe, a beautiful married woman, enjoys sharing pleasant moments with multiple men. However, she consults a doctor who makes her realize that this behavior constitutes an illness that could destroy her family if she doesn't take measures to remedy it. It begins by showing us Zoe, who goes to see a psychiatrist named Marcella. Before starting the discussion, Marcella assures Zoe that all their conversations will remain confidential. Zoe then begins to explain what is happening to her, going back 6 months to tell her story. Indeed, Zoe leads a dream life with a beautiful house and a family that everyone would envy. She starts by mentioning a day when she has fun with her husband Jason, their children, and her mother. However, feeling dissatisfied in the evening, she retreats to her office to watch a restricted film and find pleasure using a device. The next day at the office, Zoe is greeted by her employee named Shane. Later, her colleague Brina joins her, and after some informal discussions, Brina presents information about a painter named Quinton. Brina expresses the wish for Zoe to become Quinton's communication agent and asks her to do everything to secure this contract. Later, Zoe attends an exhibition of Quinton, where she meets a man with whom she discusses the displayed paintings. She continues to admire Quinton's talent without realizing that she is talking to him until another man greets him by pronouncing his name. Quinton then introduces himself to her, complimenting her beauty. Subsequently, Zoe asks if they can discuss business, and he agrees, charming her. She then explains the workings of her agency, piquing Quinton's interest, and hands her his business card, inviting her to visit his studio. Zoe tells Marcella that her encounter with Quinton made her realize that her life was disappointing. However, to avoid thinking in such a way, she took an initiative. That evening, she organized a romantic dinner with Jason, but when she calls him, he says he has work at the office and won't be able to come home. So, she decides to go out and tells her mother that she's going grocery shopping. Later, she finds herself in a nightclub, and at one point, her mother calls her, asking her to buy her an ice cream, which forces her to come back. The next day, while she's taking a shower, Jason comes in and joins her to apologize. After that, they have a good time together. Later in the evening, as she's asleep next to him, she dreams of Quinton kissing her, but she's immediately awakened by her daughter, announcing that Jason has prepared breakfast. She heads to the kitchen, where Jason gives her a kiss before taking the kids to school. Zoe confides in Marcella that she loves Jason, but can't figure out why she's never satisfied in the bedroom, despite enjoying their time together 3 times a day. Instead of addressing the issue with Jason, she's been exploring other options. Then she continues her story. She goes to Quinton's studio to discuss the contract, and without even reading the document, he immediately signs it. Later, he asks her to pose for him, expressing the desire to think about her in his absence. Zoe, feeling uncomfortable, wants to leave, but he approaches her and mentions that the painting will help fulfill his desires. Unable to resist, she ends up spending some time with him. Later, she returns to the office and can't stop thinking about it with a smile until Shane comes to talk to her about a client on the phone. However, she chooses not to answer the call. While looking at her family photo, she begins to feel a growing discomfort. When she considers going home, Shane and Brina try to hold her back. Despite Brina's insistence about a well-known new client, she insists on wanting to go home, explaining that she doesn't feel well. Eventually, despite the attempts to keep her, she makes the decision to leave. Later at home, Zoe showers with regrets, but in front of her mirror, she continues to think about Quinton until her son comes to complain about her absence at his soccer match. Then, her mother advises her to rest if she doesn't feel well. She lies down and Quinton sends her a photo of his artwork. The next day at the office, Brina comes to give her the address of her appointment with a client and notices that she is distracted. Later, she tears up her contract with Quinton and goes to his studio to return it to him. However, on the spot, she meets a girl named Damone who warns her to be careful with Quinton. When she resumes her journey to work, she encounters Quinton outside. She asks him to end their relationship and he agrees. However, he invites her to an unknown place to show her one of his artworks, and she agrees for an hour. They go together, and on the spot, he presents her with a large painting that she finds beautiful. Later, he tells her that when he was a child, his mother ran away with her lover, and unable to bear it, his father committed suicide. He bursts into tears, confessing to Zoe how deeply in love he is with her. They spend more enjoyable time together, causing Zoe to arrive late for her day's appointment. She lies about her daughter's health to be forgiven. Zoe tells Marcella that when she's with Quinton, she loses all sense of time. She acknowledges that this relationship is destroying her, but despite that, she can't help but go back to see him every day. Afterwards, she hurries home because it's already getting late. Sometime later, she poses for Quinton, but she talks so much while moving that when he approaches to straighten her, she charms him, and they have a good time. Later, she wakes up, but Quinton is absent. She looks around and comes across drawings of several naked girls. Quinton returns and Zoe expresses jealousy when he says they are his ex-girlfriends. Once again, she repeats that they should stop, but he keeps trying to hold her back by implying that she is special to him. Upon returning home, her son expresses anger towards her because she once again missed his football match. Later, her daughter discovers dye on her hair and she apologizes to her son. On another day, Zoe finds herself once again with Marcella. She confides in Marcella that she intended to tell everything to Jason but couldn't bring herself to do it. In response, Marcella discloses an addition to the situation and suggests sharing everything with Jason, proposing that they undergo couples therapy together. Zoe decides she will give it a try. That evening, she receives an erotic painting from Quinton, making her uncomfortable. Later, Jason arrives and notices she has a new phone. When she suggests they see a therapist to discuss their sex life, he doesn't understand the reason and refuses to participate. Eventually, he proposes discussing it privately and suggests a romantic date. However, disappointed by his refusal, Zoe prefers to go for a walk. Another day, Zoe is once again at Quinton's place, and after having a good time as she's about to leave, he asks her to leave her husband. However, she refuses, stating that she cannot abandon her 2 children. He admits he didn't know he would fall in love with her, and Zoe says it's impossible. Upon leaving, she discovers the painting he made of her, with himself drawn beside her. Later, he adds that he also wants to start a family. After that, Zoe goes back to Marcella's to share the current situation and explain that what she needs is not to change a man. When Marcella asks her what she truly wants, Zoe recounts a night at a nightclub where she flirted with another man named Corey. They ended up having a good time together in the restroom and she enjoyed it. Later, she asks Marcella if there are medications to help her stop this behavior. Marcella then urges her to talk about her childhood, but Zoe claims not to remember. Next, she inquires about the origin of the scar on her hand and Zoe responds that she's had it since forever. Marcella encourages her to try to remember the past to solve the present. Afterward, she goes back home. One morning at the office, Zoe starts thinking about Corey, who is having a good time with her on-site. Brina then arrives, interrupts her thoughts, and notices that she seems strange. Later, Brina shows her the company's numbers, which are experiencing a significant decrease. Later, she goes to Quinton's place but doesn't find him in the usual spot. As she's about to leave, she discovers him having a good time with Damone, and he follows her to explain. However, she states that she wants nothing more to do with him. Immediately, Zoe goes to Corey's place and asks him to have a good time with her. One evening, after wishing the children good night, she says goodbye to her mother and heads to a place where several people are having a good time. She is accompanied by Corey, with whom she once again enjoys a pleasant moment. Later, back at home, Jason was waiting for her in the living room. He asks where she was, but she claims she was working. Then, she suggests that their relationship has a problem and encourages Jason to spice up their life by trying different things. However, Jason doesn't understand and thinks she has changed. Later, he asks her to truly explain what's wrong, stating that he can do anything for her. She then suggests he have a good time in the living room, but he refuses and goes to bed. A few days later, Zoe arrives at the office and notices that everyone is acting strangely. Brina then approaches her to inform that they are losing all their clients and soon won't be able to afford to pay the employees. She then urges Zoe to be more present in the company and to seek new clients, otherwise they risk losing everything. Zoe decides to visit Quinton again with a new contract, as she had torn up the old one. They were seen having a good time, and then Quinton receives a visit from a gentleman with whom he has business dealings. This person came with Jason, who explores and appreciates Quinton's artworks. Later, Jason comes across Zoe's painting, but before he can lift the cover to notice it, he is interrupted by his colleague who requests that they leave. After their departure, Zoe gets angry with Quinton, who had no intention of preventing Jason from looking at the painting. One afternoon, Zoe, asleep, receives a call from Corey that wakes her up, but she doesn't answer. She goes to the living room and discovers that the whole family has planned to go to the cinema without telling her. Later, we see her at her next session with Marcella, who expresses feeling abandoned. Marcella then asks her to talk about her childhood, but Zoe asserts that it no longer suits her, mentioning that she hasn't found any solutions since discussing it. Marcella advises her to take control of her life by being honest with her lovers and breaking up with them. She also suggests addressing the topic of her child, which upsets Zoe, prompting her to leave. Upon returning home, she sees Corey, who has come to deliver her underwear in the form of a package. Inside, Jason presents an artwork that Quinton gave him, tormenting Zoe and making her start feeling unwell. One night, she arrives at Quinton's and declares that they should stop seeing each other. However, he insists that he cannot live without her. Later, Corey joins them and she reveals that she wanted to bring them together to end both relationships simultaneously. She confesses that she doesn't love either of them, but is more drawn to the uncontrollable impulses of her sexual desires. Later on, Corey tries to brutalize her, but Quinton prevents him and hits him with a tool. Then, he approaches Zoe, forbidding her to abandon him. However, she accidentally knocks over several glasses, causing him to injure himself, yet he continues to follow her throughout the house. Eventually, he starts to deliriously tear apart his paintings until he locates Zoe and attempts to strike her. Jason immediately steps in, striking him with the artwork he had given him. Afterward, he presents Zoe with a new phone he found in the house, claiming he is aware of everything, and then leaves. Damon arrives in turn and asks what happened, but Zoe runs towards Jason to explain that she is unwell. However, he doesn't believe her, labeling it as infidelity. As she tries to insist, his anger escalates, leading him to ask for a divorce. Zoe responds by saying that without him, she is dead, and she walks away to get hit by a car. A few days later, we see Zoe's children in sadness. Damone takes care of Quinton and Jason is also affected. Later on, Brina and Shane handle the clearance of the offices. Zoe lies in the hospital. She remembers how she was mistreated when she was little. A few weeks later, Jason takes her back home. Along the way, he confides that he still can't accept it, as he can't stop thinking about her infidelity. Once at home, she is welcomed by her children, who are happy to see her. Later, we see Jason leaving with all his belongings. Months later, Brina comes to visit Zoe, asking her to make an effort for her children and improve her condition. Later, her mother hands her a document given by Marcella asking her to call. Later, Jason arrives with the children. While the kids go inside to see Zoe, he talks with Zoe's mother, who informs him that Zoe is truly ill. She hands him the document detailing the illness, and from then on, he spends nights and days pondering over it. One day, Marcella joins her support group and happily notices that Zoe has finally decided to participate. Full of joy, Marcella introduces her to the other members. Zoe then stands up to share her story, recounting what happened during her childhood. During her narrative, Jason enters. Zoe continues by expressing that she still loves her husband and simply needs his support to overcome her struggles. Afterwards, they approach each other and share a kiss. And so, the film comes to an end. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on our videos. Thank you for supporting us by sharing the video, and once again, thanks for watching.